Welcome back to the podcast, de Philippe. Today, we're going to be talking about something pretty interesting.
Okay.
It's pretty unsettling, too, with all this new technology and all these new robots coming out, particularly these humanoid robots that are starting to come into our lives.
Yeah.
Like, what happens when all this great technology that we're making to make our lives easier actually becomes, a tool that could be used to hurt us?
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it?
Definitely a double-edged sword. And, we're seeing a lot of this already. Just look at, like, those robot vacuums that got hacked a while back.
Right.
And we'll be talking about things like that and the safeguards that need to be put in place as we move to this future with more humanoid robots. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Amazon for more discussions like this.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's interesting because we often get so caught up in, the cool factor of these new gadgets, the convenience factor that we don't always think about,
Yeah, the downsides.
The potential downsides.
Exactly. Yeah. And one of those big downsides is the very real possibility of hacking. Like those incidents we were talking about in the U.S. late last year.
Yeah.
With the Ecovacs Deebot X2 robot vacuums. Can you imagine your robot vacuums spewing racist insults at you?
I know, it sounds crazy.
It's insane.
Like something out of a movie, right?
It's like Black Mirror come to life.
Yeah. It really happened.
It did. It's wild.
And it wasn't just the offensive language. They were moving all crazy, too.
Oh, yeah.
Like really erratic. You could tell someone was controlling them remotely.
That's so creepy. What made them so vulnerable to hacking, though?
Well, it seems like the hackers got in through the Bluetooth connector, kind of like a back door that let them control the robot from a distance.
Really?
Like from pretty far away, actually.
How far?
Up to 100 meters, they say.
100 meters, wow.
And get this. They figured out how to disable the camera warning sound, too.
So you wouldn't even know you were being watched.
Someone could be spying on you and you'd have no clue.
That is scary. But Ecovacs, they announced a security update for that, right?
Yeah, they said an update was coming back in November 2024. But it's January 2025 now.
Yeah.
And we still don't know if it's actually worked. They also mentioned something called credential stuffing.
Wait, what's credential stuffing?
Oh, I'm sorry. Basically, it's when hackers steal login info, like usernames and passwords from other websites.
Right.
And then they try to use that same info to get into accounts on different platforms.
Like Ecovacs in this case.
Exactly.
So it's like, even if they fix one problem, hackers might still find other ways in.
Yeah. It's a never-ending battle, it seems like.
A never-ending game of cat and mouse. Which leads to a bigger question. If they can hack something as simple as a robot vacuum, what does that mean for the security of these more complex humanoid robots? Ones that are designed to interact with us on a much deeper level.
Right.
That's what I find really concerning.
Yeah.
As we move towards a future where these humanoid robots are everywhere, maybe even helping with things like childcare or elder care, the potential consequences of hacking become even more serious.
For sure. It's not just about someone controlling your vacuum anymore.
Right.
It's about the potential for something much bigger.
Yeah.
Something some experts are calling techno-terrorism.
Techno-terrorism.
Very. Sounds ominous.
Imagine a hacked humanoid robot.
Yeah.
Maybe one with enhanced strength or access to sensitive areas in your home.
Yeah.
Being used for some malicious purpose.
Yeah.
The thought of robots being weaponized like that, it's definitely disturbing.
It is disturbing. And that brings us to the question of what rules or safeguards need to be put in place to counter this hacking and this potential for techno-terrorism, especially as these humanoid robots become more and more a part of our lives.
Yeah. I think this is a good place to pause for now.
Sure.
But we'll come back and dig into some potential solutions in the next part of our discussion.
All right. Sounds good. So we were talking about this whole techno-terrorism thing and how scary it is to think about these hacked humanoid robots being used for bad stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a pretty scary thought.
It is. And, as these robots become more common, we really need to think about putting some solid regulations in place.
I totally agree. Like, we need to be ahead of this and not wait till it's too late.
Exactly.
What kind of rules and regulations are we talking about, though?
Well, first off, we need some serious laws that specifically deal with humanoid robots and, the potential for them to be misused.
So like a whole separate set of laws.
Yeah, basically a new category just for these robots. And these laws would have to cover everything,
Yeah.
design and manufacturing standards, ethical considerations,
Right.
making sure someone is held responsible if a robot causes harm,
Right. So it's not just about preventing hacking.
Yeah.
It's about who's responsible if something goes wrong.
Exactly.
Got it.
What about the technical side of things, though?
Oh, yeah, for sure. We need to talk about that.
Like, what can we actually do to make these robots more secure?
Right. What kind of measures can we take?
I think we need a multi-layered approach to security.
Multi-layered.
Yeah, like different levels of protection.
Makes sense.
One really important thing is advanced encryption.
Right.
For all the communication between the robot and its systems.
So basically, like making sure all the data is scrambled up?
Yeah, exactly, like having unbreakable codes.
Okay.
And then there's multi-factor authentication.
Like what we use for online banking and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's like having multiple locks on your door.
To keep the bad guys out.
Precisely.
But what if someone does manage to get past all those security measures?
Well, that's when physical access restrictions come in.
Physical access restrictions?
Yeah, like making it super hard for anyone to mess with the robots insides.
Oh, so like tamper-proof seals and stuff?
Exactly, and secure compartments so no one can get to the hardware without permission.
Right.
And another thing, we need to limit how strong and powerful these robots are.
Oh, yeah. Good point.
We don't want a hacked robot suddenly going all super strong.
Or having access to, like,
right.
dangerous tools.
Exactly. It's all about minimizing the potential for harm.
That's a lot to think about.
It is.
So it sounds like we need robust regulations, advanced security measures,
Yes.
and some careful design considerations.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
To really tackle this.
You got it.
And we can't forget about the human element either.
Oh, absolutely.
We need to make sure people are aware of the risks, how to spot red flags and what to do if they think something's not right.
Public awareness and education are key.
They really are.
But, even with all these precautions,
Yeah.
some people are still going to be uneasy about having a humanoid robot in their home.
Of course.
It's a big change.
It is a big change.
So how do we deal with that?
Well, I think transparency is super important.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, manufacturers need to be upfront about the data these robots collect, how it's used, and who has access to it.
Absolutely.
If we want people to trust this technology, we need to be open and honest about it.
Especially after those robot vacuum hacking incidents.
Oh, right.
People lost a lot of trust after that.
Yeah, because Ecovacs, the company that made them, they kind of downplayed the whole thing at first.
They did. They tried to say it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah, like, oh, you'd need physical access to the robot to hack it.
Right, and a deep understanding of the technology.
As if the average person shouldn't be worried.
Exactly, but that doesn't seem very accurate, does it?
Not really. I mean, if security researchers could hack those vacuums pretty easily, then other people probably could too.
I would think so.
So basically, we can't just take the manufacturer's word for it when it comes to security.
No, we need independent people to check these things out.
Right, like third-party experts.
Yes.
Who can find the vulnerabilities and hold these companies accountable.
Exactly. Independent security audits are crucial.
Independent security audits, okay.
Yeah, think of it like having a safety seal of approval.
So consumers know they can trust it.
Exactly.
This is getting complicated.
It is.
It feels like we're talking about a whole new set of problems.
Yeah, it's a whole new world.
That we've never had to deal with before.
But you know what? Humans are pretty good at solving problems.
That's true.
Yeah.
I just worry that we won't figure this out in time.
I get it, but look, we've faced complex challenges before as a society.
Yeah.
And we've found solutions.
What makes you so hopeful that we can handle this one?
Well, human ingenuity, for one thing.
Okay.
We're incredibly adaptable and innovative as a species. When we're faced with a problem, we tend to find a way to fix it, even if it takes some time and effort.
Right.
Plus, there's already a lot of great work being done in the field of robot security.
That is reassuring to hear.
So we're not starting from scratch.
Okay, good.
But we do need to start working on these solutions now, not wait till these robots are everywhere.
Before we start panicking.
Exactly. We're on the cusp of a major technological shift, and we need to be ready for both the good and the bad that comes with it.
The opportunities and the risks.
You got it.
All right, so we've talked about a lot, but is there anything else you think we should be thinking about?
You know, one thing that often gets overlooked in these conversations is the role of international organizations.
Oh, like the UN and stuff?
Exactly. They need to step up and take charge when it comes to techno-terrorism.
That makes sense because this isn't something any one country can handle on its own.
Exactly. We need international cooperation.
Yeah.
We need to work together to establish global standards for robot security, share information about potential threats, and develop countermeasures together.
So it's a global problem that needs a global solution. It's a tall order, but it sounds essential.
It is. The future of humanoid robots is full of potential, both good and bad.
Yeah.
And it's up to us to make sure the good outweighs the bad.
Well, you've definitely given me a lot to think about.
Good.
I'm feeling a lot more informed about the risks, but also a bit more optimistic that we can actually address them.
That's the spirit. We need to approach this with a sense of urgency, but also with a sense of hope.
Okay.
Because the future isn't set in stone. It's something we create.
I like that. We have the power to shape the future of humanoid robots.
We do.
That's a good note to end on, I think.
Yeah, let's pick this up again next time.
Sounds good. In the next part of our discussion, we'll dive into some of the potential solutions and strategies for making sure we can safely coexist with these robots.
Looking forward to it.
So we've talked about the benefits and the risks of humanoid robots and the need for these regulations and security measures. But even with all that, there's still this, fear of the unknown. Like, how do we as individuals prepare for a future where these robots are just like part of everyday life?
It's understandable to feel a bit apprehensive. I mean, this is new territory for all of us.
Yeah.
But I think the key is to approach this with a balanced perspective. Acknowledge the risks, but don't let fear stop us from moving forward.
Right.
We've adapted to new technology throughout history.
Yeah, we have.
The important thing is to be informed and proactive.
You mentioned earlier the role of international organizations like the UN and Interpol. How can they help us create a safer future with these robots?
Well, they can really help with global cooperation, which is essential when you're dealing with something like techno-terrorism.
Right, because that's not something any one country can deal with on its own.
Exactly. Imagine a scenario where a hacked robot crosses a border.
Oh, wow, yeah.
We need clear communication and protocols between countries to respond effectively. International organizations can help set up those frameworks and encourage collaboration between nations.
So it's about creating a united front against this new threat.
Precisely, working together is key.
What about law enforcement, though? Like, how do we prepare them to handle incidents with robots?
That's another important piece of the puzzle. We need specialized units within law enforcement that are specifically trained to handle situations involving robots.
Okay, so not your typical police officers.
No, they'd need a deep understanding of robotics, AI, cybersecurity.
So like the robot police.
Yeah, think of them as the first responders in a world where robots are part of our lives.
Okay, that makes sense.
They'd need special training simulations, too.
Oh, yeah, like practicing how to respond to different situations.
Exactly. Everything from a malfunctioning robot causing a disturbance to a full-blown techno-terrorist attack.
Wow.
We need to be prepared for anything.
It sounds like something out of a movie.
It does, but the threat is real.
Yeah.
We have to take it seriously.
Okay, so shifting gears a bit, let's talk about the manufacturers. What can they do to make sure these robots are used safely and ethically?
Well, as we discussed earlier, transparency is crucial.
Right.
People need to know what data their robots are collecting, how it's being used, who has access to it. Manufacturers need to be upfront about these things, give users more control over their data.
So like clear privacy policies.
Yes, exactly. And easy to understand explanations about how data is collected and the ability to opt out of certain features.
Gotcha.
Empowering the consumer, that's key to building trust.
But transparency is just the first step, right?
Yeah, it's a good starting point, but they also need to prioritize security from the very beginning, Build those robots with security in mind.
Like building a fortress around the software and hardware.
Exactly. Make it as tough as possible for hackers to get in.
Sounds like a huge job, though.
It is a big task.
Especially as these robots get more and more complex.
But it's a necessary one.
Yeah.
We can't cut corners when it comes to security, especially as these robots become more integrated into our lives.
Right.
Imagine the consequences if a robot that's supposed to be taking care of an elderly person gets hacked and manipulated to do harm.
That's terrifying.
It's a scary thought, for sure.
It is. So before we wrap up, is there any final message you want to leave our listeners with?
I think the most important thing to remember is that the future of humanoid robots, it's not set in stone, it's something we create
Okay.
through our choices, our demands, our actions.
So we have a say in this.
We do. We need to be informed, engaged, and proactive.
Right.
Don't be afraid to ask questions. Demand transparency. Hold those in power accountable.
That's good advice.
The future is in our hands.
Well, that's a powerful message. And on that note, I want to thank you for joining us for this fascinating conversation on the podcast at Philippe.
It's been a pleasure.
Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and Amazon for more thought-provoking discussions.
And stay curious.
Until next time.